Hello and welcome to It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Joining me today is Steve Mesler, who is President and CEO of Classroom Champions, an organization that is based here in Calgary. Thanks for joining us today, Steve.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It's a beautiful
Well,
day here in Calgary.
yeah, it is certainly is, and a beautiful day for a great announcement today involving the NHL and Classroom Champions. Sorry. Can you talk to a little bit, Steve, just about what that announcement is and what your partnership with the NHL is in the next little while?
Yeah, no, would love to. And thank you for having me on and to be able to talk about this. Yeah, Classroom Champions is a Calgary-based charity. We announced today our partnership with the NHL and the Willie O'Ree documentary, which for those out there that name may or may not ring a bell, Willie was the first Black NHL player to play in the league. And today, on the first day of Black History Month, we had a big event that kicked off this partnership with the NHL. Prime Minister Trudeau joined us. We had a great panel with kids in classrooms and schools from across the country. So we're excited to help the NHL bring the story of sport to life through the Willie O'Ree documentary and help get this out in the schools.
And sorry, and maybe can you explain a little bit of how Classroom Champions is going to be involved specifically in this venture?
Yeah, no, we are Classroom Champions is the education partner for all of this across North America. So what we are helping the NHL do is we're helping them have their players tell stories. And what we do is we help tell those stories digitally. We help get them into schools and put them into teacher guides, into various, what we do, which is social and emotional learning curriculum, which is in essence soft skills for schools. And we are responsible for helping the NHL and helping the Willie O'Ree documentary, and as well as all these players that are getting involved. We're responsible for helping translate that into things that teachers can use. Lessons from Willie.ca is the place for people to go, and teachers and parents to be able to download that.
Okay, super. Can you talk a little bit, Steve, just a little bit about Classroom Champions and the organization itself and what you guys do and your mission and purpose?
Yeah, we're a nonprofit and charity based across the U.S. and Canada. And schools turn to Classroom Champions when they're looking for support to bring social quality as well as just different social and emotional learning into their schools. We partner with over 200 Olympians and Paralympians and NHL, NFL players, college student athletes, and we help translate the values of sport, all the reasons that we put our kids into sport: fair play, teamwork, leadership, falling down and getting back up. We take those lessons from athletes, not the gray-haired has-beens like myself, but
Right.
the currently competing, currently playing ones in general, and we help them tell their story in a way that kids can follow, kids can learn, but also then teachers and schools can put this into their curriculum and their SEL curriculum for an entire school year.
Okay. Now, you're one of the founders of the organization. Can you tell me a little bit about the history and how this came about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually sitting in my house in Montgomery right now. You look like you're at your home as well, here in Calgary, and I could actually see what used to be the old house, the old bungalow that is now torn down and is an infill here in Calgary. And it was back in 2009 when I'd been living in Calgary for, at that point, about 6 years. I was training for my third Olympic Games. I am American at the end of the day, but I moved up here to train back in 2003 with my coach. And Classroom Champions, the idea came from, it's one of my favorite parts of it, literally came from, I was on the phone with my sister at the house a few blocks away, and we were lamenting that I was a little bit tired of going and doing school visits because I'd go in, give a talk, and leave and never see those kids again. Yet at the same time, I was living this life that the 10-year-old kid in us would have just thought was the most amazing thing in the world. I was heading to my third Olympics. I was an Olympic favorite. We were, supposed to medal at the, upcoming games. And, what kid gets to go through that? And we wanted to just find a way to share something with kids in a way that would be more meaningful than me just going in, giving a talk and leaving, which is, how you had people come to your school, how we as parents have people come to our school. And we just thought we could imagine it in a different way. And that's where Classroom Champions was really spawned from, was just my sister, who was getting her PhD in education at the time and is now a researcher. We had her education background. We had our teachers, our parents who were teachers. I had been a teacher, and my sport background. we melded all those things together, and we wound up with something that we had no intentions of turning into an organization or a nonprofit at the time. It was simply just the way that I was going to spend my last year and having a voice and helping kids understand that, even though you can get everything off of this this thing in no time today, careers take on hard work, and building relationships take a lot of work, and you can't cheat a sports career. So we wanted to show them that there's a process.
Okay.
Thanks for asking. I love that. That's my favorite part of class.
You know what? I needed to, or neglected to ask you, what sport were you involved in?
I was a bobsledder.
Oh, wow.
I ran for 5 seconds and I sat for a minute. So that was my expertise. Went to 3 Olympics, 2002, 2006, 2010, and won an Olympic gold medal in 4-man bobsleigh in 2010.
Oh, wow. You know what? One of the most exhilarating and most terrifying things that I've ever done in my life was years ago, go down the bobsled run at Canada Olympic Park. At that time it was called. And, it was 2 people from the Canadian national team, one at the front, one at the back, and 2 of us regular people sitting in the middle. And oh my gosh, I've never experienced anything like that. It was unbelievable.
It's amazing. And it's such a shame that we don't have the ability to do that here in Calgary. Hopefully someday we can find a way to bring the track back to life.
Can you see the run from your home?
I can see the ski jump tower actually right out my office window. I can see the ski jump tower. Which I love. Like that was one of the coolest things when I moved to Calgary back in 2003 was, remember I was living in a bunch of different Dalhousie and then Varsity. And then from our place in Tuscany, like a bunch of the bobsledders bought a place in Tuscany back in 2004, like 4 of us. And we used to drive to the university, to U of C, and we could actually see the Olympic Park. And that was one of the coolest things as an athlete who moved to Calgary to train for the Olympics, to actually see this Olympic Park was inspiring every day.
Wow, that's super. So what is your reach? You're based in Calgary, but maybe explain a little bit about the reach that the organization has.
So we work with in our actual internal program. So Classroom Champions runs a mentorship program. It's called Mentorship Plus. And then we have a social emotional learning curriculum. So between those 2 programs, there's about 60,000 students across the US and Canada that are in those programs. And then we do partnerships like this with the NHL, where we will reach millions of students through live events like what we did today with the Prime Minister and with Willie and Sarah Nurse, who was involved. Ron McLean hosted it, to other partnerships that we have in the US with the likes of NBC Olympics. So we focus on a couple different outlets at Classroom Champions. One of those being the curriculum and the longer term programs that schools can embed to create real change. We want to help them improve attendance. We help them improve grades. We help them decrease bullying and decrease behavioral issues by creating a community through our mentorship and our SEL Foundations curriculum. And then on the other side, we want to expose kids to great people doing amazing things, and then inspire them in their schools to do more, to learn more. And, today to have a conversation about race and racism with the Prime Minister of the country, and to show kids that you can have these conversations, and even the Prime Minister talks about these things, and to have that with Willie O'Ree sitting there and exchanging those ideas. My hope is that we've inspired millions of kids today to just go home, or, well, all of the Canadian schools are in school. I was going to say a lot of the American kids are not, they're all at home anyway. But we've inspired them to actually go home and have these conversations.
Now, one last question for you, Steve. As you look at a lot of the society's issues these days, whether it is social justice and racism and other things, diversity, etc. Why do you think sports plays an important role in this whole area in terms of education?
Sports is one place for probably all of us. It's apolitical at this point. In a world that has been hyper politicized and polarized, sports is the one thing that, whether you are a liberal or conservative and you're from Calgary and you're watching the Flames game, you're cheering for the Flames. And the Flames were actually, one of the leaders who sponsored the Willie O'Ree event last year here in Calgary. That was the premiere of the movie that got Classroom Champions involved with the movie. So, but when you look across the spectrum, kids watch sports. Whether they're a fan of sports or not, it's part of their the fabric of culture and society. So from a Classroom Champions perspective, and what my sister and I really wanted to do was, let's find ways, instead of, like we're taking a risk when we put our kids into sport, and we're hoping that they get these lessons out of them. Like, we're hoping they learn about leadership. We're hoping they learn about teamwork. Yeah. That's really, and then, and then we triple, quadruple cross all of our fingers and toes to think maybe someday they can go get a scholarship or they can go play at a next level. But generally, we want them to learn these skills. So instead of hedging our bets and taking a risk, let's just be more explicit about it. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to make sport more explicit. And the lessons, because kids see these things. They see winning, they see losing. They can watch joy, they can watch sadness in a way that you can't really do in the rest of life. You don't see that in business. Yeah. We cheer, but it's always, you could have always made the deal a little bit better. You couldn't have won any more. You just won the game. You won the game. And I think that's where sport plays such an important role, especially when you're talking about kids that are being cut off from other adults right now through COVID, not by no fault of their own, or they're getting cut off from other adults. They're not going to have a lot of the sporting experiences they can. So we got to find some ways to get the right people, because the other blessing and curse about these things is the people our kids are watching on here, we can't really control very much. It's not like we always used to sit in front of the television together and know what our kids are watching when we were kids. So we want to be able to help get the right people in. And I think sports is such an obvious place for that.
Excellent. Super. Well, thanks very much, Steve, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and go Flames go.
All right. That was Steve Mesler, who is president and CEO of Classroom Champions, based here in Calgary. This has been It's Your Business with Mario Toneguzzi on Megapix Media. Thanks for joining us today.